Here's what we got tonight. Mark Pope's departure to Kentucky. What does that mean for BYU? What happens next? And that's why Coach Cleveland's with us, and we'll dive into that. We've also got some football tonight.
Yeah, so get ready for the fall, right? Because here it comes. Spring ball is over. Summer workouts are underway. Recruiting starts tomorrow, so the open recruiting period. So coaches are back out on the road recruiting. But we've got BYU receiver Darius Laster in the studio tonight.
Yeah.
And not only that, we have BYU sophomore running back LJ Martin in the house tonight. So
those guys are big. Those guys have to have huge seasons coming up.
Yeah, they need to have big seasons if BYU to take a step forward, get back to bowl eligibility, and compete in the Big 12 this year.
All right, Cougar Nation on our live stream, let's get right to what everyone's talking about. What's BYU going to do for a basketball coach? Mark Pope takes the Kentucky job. Dallin Hall, Richie Saunders, Ali Khalifa are already in the portal. We're not quite sure where things go from there. There are some names that we're going to talk about that are candidates for this head job. We think it'll be filled this week. That's the buzz. It'll be filled this week. And so let's bring in officially former BYU basketball coach Steve Cleveland. Coached the Cougars from 97 to 2005 before leaving for Fresno State. Mark Pope left for the place he wanted to go. Steve left BYU for Fresno State where he wanted to go.
Well, was it where he wanted to go, or did he feel guilty because he was the only human being on earth that could get them back in good graces with the NCAA? I think...
Jerry Tarkanian's going to be the first person to hug you when you cross over.
Yes, because he's the man.
And he's going to thank you.
He's the man that saved Fresno State basketball. We won't get into the details.
Before we finish tonight, I'll give you some details of things you've never heard.
Okay, good. Good.
I was just having a conversation with a big booster down there, and he had no idea, and he was giving him money, and not illegally. He really supports the program, football, and everything. And I said, So the last half hour, as I was driving over here, I was sure
you got some new stuff.
I got some good stuff.
Okay, good, because we don't share that unless you share it with us. But I'm going to say, and this is not an overstatement, that Steve Cleveland kept Fresno State on the basketball map and from being in big trouble by taking that job. And
saved them.
And Fresno's near and dear to his heart. He coached over there at Fresno City College for a long time, and he was the right guy.
So you get what it's like to go back home. And so Mark Pope decides he's going to go back to where he spent 2 years playing at Kentucky and was the captain of their championship team. Really, the only Pope question we have tonight on this show is, were you surprised he left?
No.
Were you surprised Kentucky offered it to him?
No.
Really?
No, I wasn't. I mean,
why?
Just because I've spent enough time with him, and this is not about being a BYU guy or not being a BYU guy.
Right.
And if you're not, you're not a good member of the church, or all the craziness that's out there. I've always felt like Mark had another level of where he wanted to be. And we had some private conversations. Never once did he ever talk about ever leaving BYU. I never had a conversation with him about that. But I just always felt that there was another level for him. And the fact that he started looking at his life and being at Kentucky and winning a national championship and then going to medical school. And then, we didn't really know what this path was. And then all of a sudden, I think he might have been at NC State as an assistant there for a year or two.
He was Wake Forest.
Yeah. And it was in his heart and his blood. And I think doing what he did at UVU, having success against BYU when that had never happened, he did all the right things, and he connected with the guys and got everybody excited about basketball again when there had been a little bit of a dip in the WCC for a couple of years. Yeah. But it didn't surprise me at all. I just been around him and know that his vision was beyond here. And it's not that it's any better. Yeah. Obviously, Kentucky is a blue blood program and all that going on, but we're sitting here at one of the very best universities on the planet, athletically, academically, and every other way. So there'll be days, I promise you that I had those moments, and I was going into a much more difficult situation.
Right.
But you miss this place. I mean, BYU changed my life. There was no question. And not that I was, had a bunch of personal problems or anything, but I had a different perspective than I had ever had before. And I fell in love with the players and the coaches, and I'm so happy to be here and live here with my children and grandchildren and connect with so many players and coaches and get reconnected, because it's just been wonderful here.
Coach, I talked to Mark a lot over the years, and he makes no bones about how much he loved this place. while he was here. I haven't talked to him since he took the job, but how special the place is, how special the fan base is, how special the Marriott Center is, how much he loved working with the kids. I'm like you. I thought he would leave, but I thought there's maybe 3 jobs in the whole country that he could take. He would take the Duke job. Yep. He'd take the Kentucky job. Outside, like, and those were really the 2 that I thought, maybe a North Carolina job. So I felt he'd be here a lot longer because I didn't think the opportunity would come this early. And clearly he wasn't the first choice, but does that even matter? Kyle Whitting, for a fact, Kyle Whittingham wasn't the first choice at Utah.
Right.
Like, they offered a couple of guys, and then Kyle got the job. Thank goodness those other guys turned it down.
And that happens a lot more than people know.
Yeah, people don't understand that. And so a couple of guys said no because it wasn't the right time, and they were at other places. And so to me, it came quicker than I thought. But you can have both, right? You can love this institution, and you can think it's great, and you can cherish your experiences, and you can think it's one of the greatest places in the world.
Yes.
But one of those jobs comes up, that's okay, right?
Yeah. You just got to there has to be an emotional pull. There's a financial situation that you can really change your life as well. But I don't think anybody that's in this business, that's their priority.
No.
I mean, nobody's thinking about that. I think maybe the fans think, he went there for the money. He didn't go there for the money. He went there to be at one of the iconic basketball programs in the world.
His wife, however.
Yeah, well, she might benefit from that.
And because they've not been great lately. Not to Kentucky standards great. They think that they should be playing, and this is a funny thing to say, they're not playing at UConn's level lately, right? So if Mark can get them back to where they're like UConn is right now, he'll go down in history at that place, right?
Yes, yeah, and you're right. Kentucky's not what they used to be, and a change was needed. And I think everybody feels that at times. That I think that leaving here was what I felt this was what I was supposed to do. But I had some real remorse and painful moments. But it also opened a door for a new staff and a new team and a new era, and just great things happen. So no, I don't think it's a coincidence that these things happen. I mean, I was right where I was supposed to be, and Mark's right where he's supposed to be.
All right, now let's talk about where the Cougars are going to be.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the coaching candidates, but let's talk about players first, right?
So Ali Khalifa, Dallin Hall, Richie Saunders are all in the portal. There could be more. How should BYU fans digest this?
Khalifa makes sense. I don't know what, if coach is going to run the same system and offensively, and I would assume that he is, and Khalifa was a big part of that. And if he's healthy, it really wasn't healthy most of the year, but he had his moments. I'm surprised that Saunders would do that, but I'm not surprised because they don't know who the next coach is going to be. So let's put my name in the portal. Maybe he and Coach Pope have had conversations. That could be. I don't think anybody really knows unless you're a family member or a close family member, friends of the family. Robinson still, in my mind, is not resolved either. I mean, he's not going to stay at BYU. We know that. But I liked him going to the league. I thought there was some opportunities there. But I will not be surprised at all if he's in a Kentucky uniform next year.
Are you surprised that more aren't in the portal? Because I wasn't surprised that these guys were in the portal because I thought, well, when your coach changes, you just put yourself out there to give you an option, which certainly one of those is, I like the guy they just hired, I'm coming back. And that might be your first option, right? Yep. Are you surprised that more guys' names aren't in here already?
No, because I think there's connections with the school and the traditions of this school and the church. There's a lot of things that play into that, not just the young man, but their family. And, a lot of these young men grew up wanting to be good enough to be in a program like this. So it didn't surprise me. I don't know what Dallin's situation is, and I'm probably closer to him than I should be in terms of I just love
because he was a missionary in Fresno.
In my YSA ward there, and I love him. Yeah. And if he can go to Kentucky and play and start there, I think it's great. But you got to assess, and especially right now in transition, Mark's got to go get a new team. It looks like it's going to be hard to get those guys to come back. Okay, so he's got to get a new team, and bringing Dallin Hall makes a whole lot of sense because he's tough, he's competitive. He may not be the perfect penetrate and kick and beat people off the dribble, but if he's good enough to play in the Big 12, I promise you he's good enough to play in that league as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I was thinking about this, and tell me if this is a mindset that might be out there. Because at first I'm thinking, why doesn't everybody just put their name in the portal? But there is a risk to doing that, of kind of disassociating yourself with BYU. The guys that did, Like if Richie Saunders wants to come back, they'll welcome him back with the red carpet. It's like, come on,
Open
Richie,
arms.
come on right back.
Open arms.
But there's some guys, you put yourself out in the portal, the new coaching staff comes in and says, oh, good, because we have some dudes that we were going to bring in, and now that he's in the portal, well, let's not sign him back out of the portal, right?
You don't be naive and think enough to know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So there's like 1,600 kids in the portal tonight.
Yeah. And you can get better. You know, there's programs, if they lose 5 or 6 guys here, they're going to have to get better. And we'll talk about personnel too, but I think a big piece is that what's Chandler going to do? We know Dawson Baker's going to be back, and if he's healthy,
and we're hearing from pretty good sources, Chandler's planning to come.
Yes,
regardless of whether Mark's here or not.
Right. And so that's good. And I think there's some others out there. There's been talk about Kozlowski and whether he's going to stay with USC, where they're making changes.
He's he went to USC because he loves that coach.
Yes.
Now the coach isn't there.
Exactly.
And so all of a sudden it's like, wow, now I'm in the portal, and for a good reason, right? Yeah. And I think BYU has a chance to maybe get him back now.
Yeah, I do too. There's a safety net there that the NCAA provides that, hey, you put your name in, you're never coming back. I mean, I have no reason to even think any ill will of anybody that puts their name in a portal when they make a coaching change.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Former BYU basketball coach Steve Cleveland's on the Wise Guys tonight as BYU searches for a new head basketball coach on a very busy news week in Cougar Nation. Darius Lassiter just came in. He's going to join us in a few minutes as we talk about the second run in the Big 12 for football. LJ Martin will join us a bit later. Let's talk about the hit list, the names that are floating around as to who might be the new coach at BYU. There's University of Utah assistant Chris Burgess, who's been an assistant at BYU. There's UNLV assistant coach Barrett Peery, who's been a head coach before. There's the winningest high school coach in Utah history, Quincy Lewis. I think he picked up his 8th or 9th state championship this past year. Mark Madsen said in a statement he's out. He's committed to Cal. And then you bring a new name into the group conversation.
Yeah, you were talking to us.
Too.
We want to let you talk about that.
So who of this group is the most prepared to be the next head coach?
So before we drop into Kevin Young and what's happening there, I think Chris Burgess is the most prepared with a lifetime of basketball and where he's played and the impact he's had and what he's done. And the players loved him at BYU. Mm-hmm. He had a good relationship with the players here. So there was never any ill will or bad blood. He goes to Utah. There were some issues within that staff that they struggled and challenged with, but at the end of the day, I just believe that Chris brings a pedigree as a player, as a coach. He's been at the University of Utah. He's been at BYU.
I think Chris started at Duke, right?
He did.
Yeah, he started at Duke.
He did. And so he's such a good fit here. He's such a good fit. And he happens to be a good friend of mine. So there is a bias to that particular guy, but at the end of the day, I'm looking at this list, and he makes the most sense to me.
Cleve, have you ever, because I haven't, and we've been at this a long time, have you ever talked to anybody that doesn't like and respect Chris Burgess?
No.
I haven't either.
No. And funny thing is, this year I went to 3 or 4 University of Utah games because of Chris.
Yeah.
And I went down and saw them play Arizona when Utah played them, and it was a funny story that the president of the University of Utah is new there, and they got me good seats sitting there, and I'm kind of standing up clapping, And he comes down to me, he says, "Whoa, I never thought I'd see this." I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not a big Utah fan, but I'm a huge Chris Burgess fan." Yeah. And that's how that was. But
and now they got the place running well because it is a BYU guy that's running the U, right?
It is.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Delightful.
Once they got a BYU football coach, and then Chris Burgess came down here for a little while, and now he's up there on the staff, and you have a president that's from BYU. Now the U's all straightened out. Everything's good up there now.
President Randall's going to be on this show this summer.
Yeah.
Fantastic guy.
Yeah.
All right, Barrett Peery.
A seasoned coach, junior college, Division I head coach at Portland State. He's at UNLV. He has recruited the whole country. I mean, there's no rock that's gone unturned with him. I mean, and he's been in the depths of recruiting like nobody. Today, it's a lot easier to recruit with the portal.
Yeah.
Back then, you got to go travel, get in a car, fly places you've never been. And when I think of Barrett Peery, I think of a guy that's just got a relentless pursuit of being the best he can be and helping a team. He is. You can trust Barrett Peery. That's all I need to say.
Is there a chance they could get both of those guys?
I could see some wisdom depending on the conversations are had, but Barrett does bring something that he can go on the road, and certainly there's some head coaching experience that will help there. But I think the biggest thing for him is just go out and find great players. And Barrett knows what BYU is. He's been here. He's lived in the state. I think he'd be a great assistant coach. And if Barrett's not listening to this, but the word got back to him, it's not that I don't think that Barrett could be a great head coach.
Right.
If they can hire Steve Cleveland out of a juke, you can take a guy like Barrett Peery who has way more going on.
Listen, we have a lot of followers in Vegas.
Yeah, there you go. And so I love Barrett. I consider him a friend, and I'm glad he's being considered to be part of this staff. I think, Nick Robinson is someone that's been an assistant. He's really been good with the players.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how that plays out. I have had a couple conversations with Nick, and he's just in the mix of it like everybody else. But having someone that is connected to the guys is really important. I don't care what the university, it's just BYU or USC or North Carolina or Cal State Bakersfield. If you're not connected to your guys, and I think that's one of the things. It's not that Nick can't coach. He's been doing this. He was a great player, and but just speaking off the top of my head, here's another person I really respect, and I'd want my son to play for and be around.
Yeah, and now Cody Fugger's been Mark's right-hand man all along.
You're thinking he's going, don't you?
Yes, I do.
We all, nobody said this, but we're all like, how does Mark not take Cody to Kentucky with him? Because he's relied on him so much, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like me and Heath Schroyer at junior college, at Fresno State. Cody's really good.
Yes, he is.
I don't care if he had the pedigree that everybody else has. Mark trusts him. It's his good friend. I will be shocked if Cody is not there as his associate head coach.
And if for some reason he's not there, and I'm Chris or Barrett or any of these guys, I gobble him up and make him stay at BYU in a second. Wouldn't you do that?
Oh yeah. Oh no, Cody is a huge piece in the success they found.
How about Quincy Lewis?
Well, you're talking about somebody that I've said this before publicly, but if I had a son or a grandson, and there was one high school coach I had to pick, it'd be Quincy. I was telling Dave the other day that I shouldn't even be sharing this, but Quincy's daughter went with my grandson to a little formal thing, and my grandson's afraid of girls. But it's one of those things that, I saw them, and I just thought, I want my kids to play for Quincy.
Yeah, and Quincy wins all those games at Lone Peak. Then he takes a little time, comes to BYU. He goes as soon as he's the head guy at Lehigh. I told people, it's not that long. They'll start winning state championships, and bam, it was his first year.
Anybody that thinks that because he's out of high school that he doesn't have the knowledge or depth or ability to coach and teach, they don't know anything about the game. Quincy Lewis could be on any staff in any university in this country and make a contribution. He has those kind of skill set. It may not be his time to be the head coach here, but if you could get him to come be on your staff here, you'd be doing a good thing. Be one of the first things I did.
Yep.
Couple more questions for former BYU head basketball coach Steve Cleveland before we get to Darius Lassiter on the Wise Guys. By the way, Glenn from the Philippines is in the house, so
there you go.
We are all over the place going here tonight.
Corey, don't leave me hanging here. Check in from Japan.
He might be still at the Masters.
That's true. He might be at the Masters.
No one took over a program in worse shape than you did. They were 1-25 before you came in. 4 years later, you had BYU back in the big dance. For the people thinking that the Titanic has gone down because Pope left with the current program, what shape is this program in for whoever becomes a head coach this week?
I think number one, it starts with leadership and Tom Homo.
Yeah.
And Brian Santiago he oversees the women and men's basketball, and he was there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So first of all, you got great leadership at the top. Number two, you have a fan base that is second to none in the world, okay, that just love this university and love their athletes. And then I think what you have here at BYU is something that, I don't know, I'm so connected to this place because of one thing, and that's the student athletes.
Yeah.
The ability to recruit here. They're always going to be able to get great. I mean, you bring a recruit into the doggone Marriott Center and spend 2 hours there watching the game and think, man, I want to be here. And I'm not talking about just LDS kids,
right?
And so I think the program is in a good position. I think you have to act quickly. I don't think you can sleep on this and, we're going to take another week to do this. I can't even imagine that happening. So they need to get a head coach. He needs to get a staff. And I remember doing that when I got the position as being a head coach, the first thing I did, I went to Hutch, where's the National Junior College, because that's where I knew people could play. I hadn't really recruited Division I athletes. As I do recall, I found guys that under rocks and that we knew they could play. And I went out there and spent a week out there just watching guys. And so there's a sense of urgency to get that roster done. And the first thing I do is I'm going to Brother Saunders, and I'm going to sell him on everything that I love about this place and everything I can do to help you. And you know what? We're going to increase that NIL money. Now, you may say, like, well, we're bribing kids to come play. If you don't get this, you've been asleep. You've been asleep.
Right.
Okay? NIL is real, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that we're just going to throw money here and there. But for the better players, you need to take care of them. Yeah. And whatever that is, I don't know, but you got to take care of them.
And Richie Saunders is one of the great glue guys in the country.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine this team not having him. And, Nell's he's a senior. He's been here for a long time. It sounds like Waterman might be coming back, which is a huge thing.
He got cleared. He got his clearance from the NCAA. He's going to be back.
Foose is there.
Hey, talk in
when
that
you took
microphone.
over, it was 1 in 25.
Hey, talk in your microphone.
Yeah.
So you're pro.
So you took this thing over 1 in 25. And you talk about going to find guys in JCs and under rocks. This is a different situation,
way different,
right?
Way
so
different.
different.
Way different. That'll never happen again, and that whole experience will never happen again. But it was, and it was timely, and it was what was supposed to happen, and out of it came some great players, some great coaches, and really building a program now that. We started this thing. Dave took it to a whole nother level. Yep. Mark did some wonderful things here. They're not done growing. I mean, they're in the Big 12. They got to keep getting good guys and good players and good coaches, but they took a little bit of a hiccup during those last couple WCC years.
Yeah.
But I think most important is this locker room and the chemistry of these guys and bringing the guys in that are new. That would be my highest priority. Is I know you can play. I want to make sure that you get along
that you fit
with Dave.
That you fit.
You got to be a fit here.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned like Dawson Baker's coming back from an injury, and they have a pretty good core of a roster. They have to add a couple pieces, including you and I've talked about this. A big or two,
yes,
that can really compete in that league. I'm talking like a 6'11", 7-foot guy like everybody has.
Yeah.
But this is not quite the rebuild project that you were faced with.
No. This program's in great shape, administratively, collectively as a community. It's in great shape. Now this is a challenge.
Yeah.
You're not going to sleep on this. You got to jump right into this and get your guys and get on the road.
So what happens this week? What's your vision for this week?
I think a head coach is named in the next day or two.
Next day or two.
Yeah, I do. Why would you wait any longer?
Right.
Especially if you know who you want.
Yeah.
If it's Kevin Young,
nobody, like you were educating us on Kevin Young a little bit, and he's in the mix. Tell everybody out there who Kevin Young is.
Well, he's the associate head coach for the Phoenix Suns. That's a pretty prominent position.
Yeah.
A team that's, in the NBA. He started with the Sixers, and there was some connections there, and he was an assistant coach there. He's somebody that most people don't know because he's in the league. And when you get in the league, there's not a lot of talk about assistant coaches.
Until you're a head coach.
Yeah, right? Until you're a head coach. So I've never met Kevin. I know some people that do know him and that are high on him, and I'm sure he'd be a great head coach at the college level. Yes. I will say this: there will be a transition. Mm-hmm. He did coach at lower levels when he was younger as a coach, but he'd have to get used to it. But I know more than I had to get used to it with that experience. But he's so connected, and that's another thing that coaches sell to recruits. Hey, I was in the league for 8 years. I
know what it takes to get there.
Yeah, and I know, I can help you get there.
I know all the GMs. Yeah. I know. One confounding factor is he's a candidate for the head job with the Brooklyn Nets. And he also happens to be the highest paid assistant coach in the NBA.
Yes.
So there's a couple
of things.
Small hurdles.
There's a few hurdles.
Hey, let's finish up with this because we're excited about Darius coming on.
Because Darius has a role in all of this, because we would see Mark bring recruits to the big games at Lavelle Edwards Stadium when Darius is out there, and when they're bringing the house down and it's just crazy and they're winning big games. that helps recruit basketball players too, doesn't it?
Absolutely does.
That's we always wanted to go to those games. In fact, you might want to get a little NIL basketball money.
That's what they should give them, some basketball money.
Exactly. All the recruiting you're doing.
All right, Dave Rice is expected to be named as the head coach at Salt Lake Community College. Hasn't happened yet, but we understand it's going to happen.
Yeah.
How big of a deal is that for Slick?
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And for Coach, you know, I mean, he gets his own team again. You know, he's got his own team, and that is a high level of basketball. I mean, most of the guys he'll coach.
They go to the finals every year, it seems.
Yeah, they're going to be. He's recruiting mostly Division I players, and so I think being in the community, being here, who doesn't love Coach?
He's one of my favorite people in the world. Dave Rice,
so humble.
And you would send that's one of the ones you're saying. Like I would send my kids, grandkids to play for Dave Rice any day.
You know. Just to tell you about Dave, I can remember recruiting and the mess I was dealing with, and Dave would go out of his way to come by and sit by me, and he'd say, "Thank you for what you did. I want you to know it's greatly appreciated." And he didn't have to do that, you know. But that's the kind of man he is, and he always made me feel good. And when you're kind of feeling like what's going on, he always had a hand on my shoulder. We'd see him in the summer, and he would always come up to me.
Such a good man. He played with some of the craziest people ever at UNLV on some of the best teams ever.
As a Rhodes Scholar.
UNLV. And
he carried the team GPA.
I would think about David. I'm like, one of these things is not like the others. Like he's just.
They loved him.
But he was such a leader on that group of crazy, talented, crazy people.
Yeah.
And he came out of there with just such character and such.
He's going to have a lot of fun. It's going to re-energize him.
Yeah, I'm going to start. I'm going to really take a lot stronger.
He's going to come on the show. I've already texted him. He's going to come on the show once the dust settles.
I love seeing Dave.
Hey, will you promise to come back and we'll talk about all the dirt of the Tarkanian era from Fresno?
That'll
be on story night. The Mafia night.
No.
Oh yeah, we'll be careful.
We
won't name names,
but we want to hear about. And we need to do a show with him where he can tell the story he told us about how meeting with the NCAA and how they were on the verge of the death penalty. So we're going to give you a teaser on that, and Dave's going to come back.
That'll be a summer tease.
And we're going to have a show where we talk about how Steve Cleveland single-handedly kept Fresno from the death penalty.
Good. I appreciate it. It's great being with you guys. I will one little shout out. One thing I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is I'm going around and speaking to stakes and young men and young women. Well, I say I've just started, but I've got a little book that I'm working on. I think it'll be for my family, but it's called Touch All the Lines.
You hinted on it last time.
Yeah.
And
is the book done yet?
No. But what I'm doing right now is I hope to go out 2 or 3 times a month and meet with young single adults, young men, young women. We've done a couple of them. It's been fun. I've got a great partner and producer, Jeff Allen, whose dad was over the missionary department for years, and Jeff has really been helpful to me with images and things. So I'm excited. It's something that I can.
How can folks get a hold of you guys?
You know what? Probably right now we'll make ourselves more available, but it's because we're not prepared for that.
Okay.
I'm doing most of the contacts with stake presidents myself.
Let us know. We'll put it on our stream.
Yeah. I will.
You don't have to be on here for us to talk about it. Whenever it's ready, we'll talk about it. But we'll have you come back on. We'll talk about that and the whole Fresno State experience.
That'd be cool.
And if BYU hired the right guy, we'll also have you back.
We'll do that too.
The answer to that is going to be yes.
Okay.
Great. Steve Cleveland, former head coach at BYU.
Thanks, Cleve. So good to see you.
Our longtime friend. Great stories, great insight on the candidates for this job. Did you hear Steve Wright? He thought maybe tomorrow or the next day.
I hope it's within the next 2 days because they got to do that, and then they got to secure the roster as fast as possible.
We're gonna hold you to that, Coach.
Good deal.
Yes.